Pay attention to the woman walking through the glass doors of the Innovate Solutions building. Her name is Elena Reed. She is 26 years old. She is wearing a navy blue blazer over a simple white shirt, her dark hair tied back in a professional but casual ponytail. In her left hand, she carries a leather portfolio. In her right, a reusable coffee mug with a mountain range printed on it. The security footage is time-stamped October 11th, 2019. The time reads 8:52 a.m. She swipes her access card, the light on the reader blinks green, and she pushes through the turnstile. She offers a bright, familiar smile to the security guard at the front desk, a man named Arthur she greets every single morning. He smiles back. It is a perfectly ordinary moment on a perfectly ordinary Friday. Elena Reed has less than 12 hours to live. This is not just the story of a senseless murder. This is the story of a corporate culture that chose silence over safety. It is the story of a system that saw written warnings, documented fears, and official complaints not as a cry for help, but as an administrative inconvenience. And it is the story of how that deliberate inaction loaded the gun. To understand what happened in that cold, subterranean parking garage, you first have to understand Elena. She was not a statistic waiting to happen. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend. She was the person her friends called when they needed someone to listen, the one who organized the weekend hiking trips, the one who remembered birthdays without needing a social media reminder. Born and raised in suburban Oregon, Elena was the younger of two sisters. Her childhood was filled with the scent of pine needles and damp earth. Her father, a civil engineer, and her mother, a high school art teacher, encouraged her creativity from a young age. She drew, she painted, she built elaborate worlds out of cardboard boxes and blankets. While her older sister, Sarah, was pragmatic and linear, Elena was a dreamer. She saw patterns and beauty where others saw chaos. This artistic sensibility led her to pursue a degree in graphic design. She excelled. Her professors noted her unique ability to blend clean, corporate aesthetics with a deeply human touch. She was not just designing logos, she was telling stories. After graduating with honors, she landed what she called her dream job at Innovate Solutions, a rising tech startup in Portland, known for its sleek user interface software. For the first 2 years, she thrived. Her cubicle was a small island of personality in a sea of corporate gray. Postcards from her travels were tacked to the fabric walls. A small succulent, which she named Spike, sat on the corner of her desk. She was good at her job, quickly earning the respect of her peers and the praise of her managers. She was promoted to a junior team lead within 18 months. She was building a life. She had just signed a lease on a small apartment downtown, one with a balcony big enough for a tomato plant. But every life has its struggles. Elena's was a quiet one, an anxiety that sometimes crept in during the quiet hours of the night. She confided in Sarah that she sometimes felt a sense of imposter syndrome, that her success felt fragile, unearned. She was working hard to build her confidence, to believe in her own talent as much as others did. She was in therapy, working on setting stronger boundaries, on learning to say no, without feeling the reflexive guilt that so many young women are taught to feel. This vulnerability, this deeply human desire to be liked and to avoid conflict, would be tragically exploited. Because inside the sterile, climate-controlled offices of Innovate Solutions, someone was watching her, and he was not seeing a talented colleague. He was seeing an object, a prize to be won. His name was Benjamin Carter. On paper, Benjamin was the model employee. 34 years old, a senior software engineer, he was one of the company's original hires. He was brilliant, a coder of immense talent who could solve complex problems that left others stumped. He was quiet, reserved, and rarely socialized with his coworkers. Most interpreted his silence as intense focus. He would arrive early, leave late, and his productivity was legendary. Management loved him. He was reliable, he was efficient. He was, in the parlance of the tech world, a unicorn. But beneath that placid, productive surface, a very different man existed. The real Benjamin Carter was a man of deep-seated rage and a profound sense of entitlement. His internal world was a toxic brew of insecurity and arrogance. He saw the world in transactional terms. He believed his intelligence and his professional value should grant him access to whatever and whoever he desired. This darkness had flickered into view before, but never for long enough to catch fire. A former girlfriend from college would later tell investigators that he had been intensely jealous, monitoring her emails and showing up unannounced at her classes. She broke up with him, and for weeks he followed her, leaving her rambling, pleading, and then menacing voicemails until her father threatened a restraining order. He simply moved on. At his previous job, a female colleague had complained about him informally, telling a supervisor he made her uncomfortable. He would stand too close, stare for too long, and send her emails late at night that were just slightly too personal. But the colleague left the company for another opportunity shortly after, and the complaint, never formally filed, was forgotten. Benjamin Carter was an expert at walking right up to the line, but never crossing it in a way that left an undeniable mark. When Elena Reed joined his team, his obsessive focus found a new target. At first, his attention seemed harmless, even flattering. He would praise her work in team meetings. He would leave articles about new design trends on her desk. He started bringing her coffee in the morning, remembering exactly how she took it. Elena, kind and eager to be a team player, was initially appreciative. She saw it as a senior colleague, mentoring a junior one. But the gestures soon began to escalate. The emails became more frequent, arriving at all hours of the night. They veered from work topics to intensely personal questions about her life, her family, her relationships. He would accidentally bump into her in the break room, at the elevator, in the parking garage. The pleasantries curdled into something suffocating. Elena began to feel a constant, low-grade hum of anxiety. She started taking the stairs instead of the elevator. She would wait until she saw him leave for the day before she packed up her own things. She started documenting everything in a private journal. The date, the time, the incident. It was a meticulous log of her growing fear. Finally, after he cornered her by the coffee machine and asked her out for the 5th time in 2 weeks, she told him directly, "Ben, I am not interested. I want to keep our relationship professional. Please stop asking." He smiled, a thin, tight smile that did not reach his eyes, and said, "I understand." He did not understand. The rejection was not a boundary to be respected. It was an insult to be punished. His behavior shifted from unwanted attention to subtle psychological warfare. He would forget to include her on important project emails. He would publicly critique her design mock-ups in team meetings using condescending language. He would walk past her desk and mutter things just loud enough for her to hear. Elena Reed did what she was supposed to do. She followed the corporate policy. She scheduled a meeting with the Human Resources Department. She sat in a sterile, beige office with a woman named Brenda, the HR manager, and calmly laid out the facts. She showed her the emails. She read from her journal. She explained that she felt harassed and intimidated. Brenda listened, nodded, and typed notes. She told Elena she was brave for coming forward. She promised to look into it. Looking into it consisted of a single 10-minute conversation with Benjamin Carter. He was calm, professional, and expressed shock at the accusation. He claimed it was all a terrible misunderstanding. He said he was just trying to be a friendly and supportive colleague. He suggested that Elena was perhaps overly sensitive or misreading his intentions. For Innovate Solutions, this was the easiest path. Elena was a valued employee, but Benjamin was a critical asset. Accusations of harassment were messy. They could lead to lawsuits, bad press, and a damaged corporate image. A misunderstanding was a clean, simple narrative. It required no disciplinary action, no difficult conversations. The official resolution was a mediated conversation where Benjamin offered a hollow, pre-written apology for any communication that may have been misinterpreted. Elena was told by HR to try and move forward and to let them know if any further issues arose. The case was closed. The system had failed her. But for Elena, the problem was not solved. It was magnified. She had reported him, and nothing had happened. Now, Benjamin knew she was afraid of him, and he knew that their employer would do nothing to protect her. The subtle hostility in the office intensified. He would stare at her during meetings, a cold, flat look in his eyes. He was no longer trying to win her over. He was asserting his power. The morning of October 11th, 2019, began like any other. Elena arrived at work, exchanged her usual pleasantries, and sat down at her desk. She was working on a major project, a redesign of the company's flagship software. She was proud of her work, but the stress of the office environment was wearing her down. She had an interview scheduled for the following week with a rival company. She was planning her escape. Benjamin Carter also arrived at work, but his day was different. He had spent the previous night not coding, but planning. His web history showed searches for how to disable GPS on a 2018 Honda Civic, best soundproofing for a car trunk, and state parks near Portland with limited cell service. He had also purchased a roll of heavy-duty duct tape, zip ties, and a bottle of industrial-strength bleach from a hardware store 50 miles from his home. Throughout the day, their paths barely crossed. Elena was in back-to-back meetings, presenting her final mock-ups. She was in her element, confident and articulate. Benjamin remained at his desk, his headphones on, typing furiously. To anyone who glanced over, he was simply working. In reality, he was composing a long, rambling manifesto, a document he saved to a thumb drive, detailing his perceived slights and blaming Elena for his suffering. At 5:45 p.m., Elena packed her bag. She sent a quick text to her sister, Sarah. "Heading out now. See you for dinner around 7?" Sarah replied with a thumbs-up emoji. It would be the last communication anyone ever had with Elena Reed. Benjamin had left his desk 15 minutes earlier, but he did not go home. He went to his car, a dark gray sedan parked on the lowest level of the subterranean parking garage, P4. He backed his car into a spot in the far corner, a spot obscured by a large concrete pillar, a spot with no direct line of sight from the security cameras near the elevator bank. And then he waited. The parking garage at Innovate Solutions was a vast, echoing concrete cavern. At 6 p.m. on a Friday, it was nearly empty. The sound of Elena's heels clicked and echoed as she walked from the elevator toward her car. She was on her phone, scrolling through a playlist for her drive. She was preoccupied. She did not notice the dark gray sedan until she was almost upon it. The passenger door swung open, screaming. The act itself was brutally efficient. He was larger and stronger. He clamped a hand over her mouth, the other arm wrapping around her waist, and dragged her toward his open car door. She struggled, kicking and biting, her portfolio and coffee mug clattering to the ground, but no one was there to hear it. He forced her into the back seat, bound her hands and feet with the zip ties he had purchased, and covered her mouth with duct tape. He threw her belongings into the passenger seat, closed the doors, and drove calmly toward the exit ramp. The cover-up was just as methodical. He did not drive home. He drove east, toward the vast wilderness of the Mount Hood National Forest. He took winding back roads, his GPS disabled. He found a secluded, rarely used logging trail he had scouted weeks before. There, in the deep silence of the ancient forest, he murdered Elena Reed. The exact details are known only to him, but the medical examiner would later determine the cause of death to be asphyxiation. He buried her body in a shallow grave, covering it with leaves and branches. He then drove to a car wash on the other side of town, one with high-pressure hoses and powerful vacuums. He meticulously cleaned the interior of his car. He threw her purse, phone, and portfolio into a commercial dumpster behind a strip mall. He drove home, showered, and at 11:30 p.m., he sat down at his computer and played video games for 3 hours, creating a digital alibi. To the outside world, Benjamin Carter was just having a normal Friday night. The alarm was first raised at 7:30 p.m. Sarah Reed, waiting at a restaurant for her sister, started to worry. Elena was punctual to a fault. She called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. She called again at 7:45. Voicemail. She sent a text. No reply. A knot of dread began to tighten in her stomach. By 9 p.m., Sarah was in a full-blown panic. She drove to Elena's apartment. Her car was not in its designated spot. She used her spare key to let herself in. The apartment was empty. A half-unpacked bag of groceries sat on the kitchen counter. Everything was exactly as it should be, which made it feel all the more wrong. At 10 p.m., Sarah called the Portland police. The initial response was dismissive. The desk sergeant who took her call was polite but unconcerned. "She's 26 years old," he said, his voice weary. "She probably just met up with friends after work. She'll turn up tomorrow. We can't file a missing persons report for an adult until they've been gone for at least 24 hours. Sarah pleaded with him. She explained that this was completely out of character for Elena. She told him about the planned dinner. She conveyed her deep, instinctual fear that something was terribly wrong. The officer was unmoved. It was policy. That night, Sarah did not sleep. She sat in Elena's silent apartment, calling her phone over and over, hoping for an answer that never came. She became the advocate. She became the investigator. The system had told her to wait, but she refused. She knew her sister, and she knew her sister was in trouble. The next morning, driven by a desperate need to do something, Sarah went to Elena's office building. The weekend security guard would not let her up to the office, but she remembered something. Elena, worried about losing her work if her laptop ever crashed, had recently started backing up her files to a personal cloud account. And Sarah knew the password. It was the name of their childhood dog, followed by their grandmother's birthday. Sitting in her car, in the Innovate Solutions parking lot, Sarah opened her laptop and logged into Elena's account. She found everything: work files, personal photos, and a folder ominously labeled HR. Inside that folder was the breakthrough. There were copies of the emails Elena had sent to Benjamin, asking him to leave her alone. There were copies of the emails she had sent to the HR department, requesting the meeting. And there was a draft, an email Elena had started writing on Friday afternoon, just hours before she disappeared. It was addressed to Brenda in HR and her direct supervisor. It read, "I am writing to formally state that the measures taken regarding my complaint against Benjamin Carter have not resolved the issue. In fact, his behavior has worsened. I no longer feel safe at my desk or in the building. His constant staring and passive-aggressive comments have created a hostile work environment. I am asking again for intervention. I feel I am being targeted, and I am genuinely afraid of what he might do." She had never sent it. Armed with this new evidence, Sarah drove directly to the police precinct. She refused to speak to a desk sergeant. She demanded to see a detective. She was eventually led to the desk of Detective Miles Corbin, a veteran of the homicide division with tired eyes and a reputation for being relentless. He listened, he read the emails, and for the first time, someone took Sarah seriously. The official investigation began immediately. Corbin dispatched officers to secure Elena's car, which was still in the Innovate Solutions parking garage. He obtained a warrant for the company's security footage, and he sent 2 officers to the home of Benjamin Carter for a knock and talk. Benjamin was the picture of calm. He invited the officers inside. He said he was shocked to hear Elena was missing. He claimed he had worked late on Friday, leaving around 7 p.m., and had gone straight home. He said he had spent the evening playing video games and ordering a pizza. He was cooperative, concerned, and utterly convincing. But the evidence was already starting to contradict his story. The security footage from the garage was grainy, but it was clear. It showed Elena walking toward her car at 6:02 p.m. It showed a dark gray sedan parked near her spot. The camera angle was poor, obscured by the pillar, but at 6:05 p.m., the sedan's headlights turned on, and it drove away. Elena was never seen leaving the garage. Detective Corbin brought Benjamin Carter in for a formal interrogation. In the small, windowless room, Benjamin's composure remained intact. He repeated his story calmly and consistently. He denied any involvement. He painted Elena's HR complaint as a simple workplace disagreement that had been blown out of proportion. Corbin let him talk. Then he laid a photograph on the table between them. It was a still from the parking garage footage showing the gray sedan. "Is this your car, Mr. Carter?" Corbin asked. Benjamin glanced at it. "It looks like my car, yes. There are probably a lot of cars like that." Corbin slid another photo across the table. This one was a zoomed-in, enhanced image of the driver's side window. It was blurry, but a small, distinctive sticker was visible in the corner. It was the logo of an obscure open-source coding project. The same sticker was on the window of Benjamin's car, sitting in his driveway. Benjamin's story began to fray at the edges. "I may have left earlier than I thought," he stammered. "My timeline might be off." Then Corbin played his final card. "We subpoenaed your cell phone records, Ben. Your phone pinged off a tower near the Mount Hood National Forest at 8:47 p.m. on Friday night. What were you doing out there?" The mask finally shattered. Benjamin stared at the table, his face pale. His story devolved into a series of nonsensical lies. He claimed he went for a drive to clear his head. He claimed he had dropped his phone and had to go looking for it. The lies were weak, desperate, and transparent. Corbin knew he had his man. He placed Benjamin Carter under arrest for the kidnapping of Elena Reed. The charge would soon be upgraded to murder. While Benjamin sat in a holding cell, the search began. Based on the cell tower data, search and rescue teams, aided by canine units, fanned out across the vast expanse of the national forest. For 2 agonizing days, they found nothing. The terrain was dense and rugged. The discovery was made by a volunteer on horseback, exploring a little-used trail. He noticed an area where the ground seemed recently disturbed, covered with a freshly laid pile of branches that looked out of place. He dismounted and cleared them away. Underneath, he saw a patch of fabric, the navy blue of Elena's blazer. The scene was excavated with archaeological precision. Elena's body was found in a shallow grave, just as the investigators had feared. The discovery was a moment of profound heartbreak for her family, but it was also a crucial turning point in the case against her killer. The forensic search of Benjamin Carter's car, home, and computer equipment yielded an avalanche of damning evidence. The interior of the car, despite his thorough cleaning, revealed microscopic traces of Elena's DNA on the back seat. A single strand of her dark hair was found embedded in the trunk lining. Fibers from the trunk's carpet would later be matched to fibers found on her clothing. His computer told an even darker story. Forensic analysts recovered his deleted search history, revealing his methodical planning in the days leading up to the murder. They found the manifesto he had written, a chilling document that laid bare his twisted logic and his rage at Elena's rejection. It was, for all intents and purposes, a confession. The autopsy confirmed the cause of death as asphyxiation. It also revealed defensive wounds on Elena's arms and hands and skin cells from an unknown male under her fingernails. The DNA from those skin cells was a perfect match to Benjamin Carter. She had fought back. She had marked her killer. The trial of Benjamin Carter began 9 months later. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Maria Flores, built an airtight, methodical case. The defense team, facing a mountain of physical and digital evidence, was left with few options. Their strategy was to portray Benjamin as a socially awkward man, whose romantic overtures were clumsy but not malicious. They argued that the final encounter was a consensual meeting that ended in a tragic accident during a heated argument. It was a narrative that crumbled under the weight of the evidence. The prosecution's key witness was Sarah Reed. On the stand, she was composed and articulate, her voice filled with a quiet, steely grief. She told the jury about Elena's dreams, her kindness, her growing fear of the defendant. She read from Elena's journal, her sister's words echoing through the silent courtroom, a voice from beyond the grave describing the escalating harassment. Then, ADA Flores presented the emails from Innovate Solutions. She called Brenda, the HR manager, to the stand. Under cross-examination, Brenda admitted that no formal investigation had been launched. She admitted that Benjamin Carter's status as a top performer had influenced the department's decision to handle the matter informally. She admitted that Elena had been told to simply move on. The testimony painted a damning picture of corporate negligence. The forensic experts followed, one by one, methodically linking Benjamin to the crime. The DNA, the fibers, the cell phone data, the search history, each piece of evidence was a nail in the coffin of the defense's argument. The manifesto was read aloud to the jury, Benjamin's own words sealing his fate. Benjamin Carter did not take the stand. He sat silently at the defense table, staring straight ahead, showing no emotion, even as the details of his monstrous acts were laid bare. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. The verdict was read to a packed courtroom. Guilty, on all counts, kidnapping in the first degree, murder in the first degree. A wave of quiet sobs and relieved gasps swept through the gallery where Elena's family and friends sat. Sarah Reed closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. It was not justice. Nothing could bring her sister back, but it was accountability. Benjamin Carter was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He offered no apology, no statement of remorse. He was led from the courtroom in silence, a hollow man destined to spend the rest of his life in a concrete box. But the story does not end there. In the aftermath, Elena's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Innovate Solutions. Their lawyers argued that the company had a clear and documented history of Benjamin Carter's escalating harassment, and that their failure to take meaningful action made them complicit in her death. They had the information, the warnings, and the power to intervene. They chose not to. The lawsuit became a landmark case. It sent a shockwave through the corporate world, forcing companies across the country to reevaluate their HR policies on workplace harassment. It established a powerful precedent that an employer's responsibility does not end with simply documenting a complaint. They have a duty to act, to protect their employees from foreseeable harm. Innovate Solutions eventually settled out of court for an undisclosed but reportedly massive sum. The financial penalty was significant, but the damage to their reputation was catastrophic. The human cost, however, is immeasurable. Elena Reed is not a legal precedent. She's a lost daughter, a murdered sister. Her parents lost the child they raised to be creative and kind. Sarah lost her best friend, her confidant, the other half of her history. Her friends lost the person who made them laugh, who pushed them to be better. Her desk at Innovate Solutions remains empty, a silent memorial to a vibrant life, cut short. Spike, her small succulent, was taken home by a coworker who still waters it to this day. This case is a brutal reminder of a truth many are uncomfortable with. Evil often wears a mundane face. It is not always the shadowy figure in the alley. Sometimes it is the quiet colleague in the next cubicle, the high performer everyone praises. Benjamin Carter was a monster hiding in plain sight, his respectable facade concealing a pit of obsessive rage. So what is the lesson here? What is the final warning? It is that a piece of paper and a file is not protection. A corporate policy is meaningless without the will to enforce it. The system you are told to trust, the one that tells you to file a report, to document everything, to follow the proper channels, can and will fail you if the people running it prioritize assets over people. Trust your fear. Your intuition is a primal alarm system that has been honed over millennia. When it screams at you that a situation is wrong, that a person is dangerous, listen to that voice. Do not allow anyone to tell you that you are being oversensitive or that you are misinterpreting things. Your fear is real. It is valid. And it might be the only thing that keeps you alive. Elena Reed followed the rules. She did everything she was supposed to do. And in the end, the system she trusted to protect her did nothing more than document her path to the grave.